Former U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell has died from complications caused by COVID-19. He was 84 years old. Mr. Powell was the first Black U.S. Secretary of State. He served 3 Republican presidents in various capacities, culminating in his tenure as Secretary of State under U.S. President George W. Bush. His reputation was tarnished after he presented false intelligence reports to the United Nations to justify the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, which he later regretted. His family says he was fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Well, to reflect on the legacy of Secretary of State Colin Powell, we are now joined by Liz Schulke. She is a U.S. policy analyst in Baltimore, Maryland. Liz, good to have you back on. We understand that Secretary of State Powell died from COVID-19 complications. What more can you tell us? What have we heard from his family?
His family released a statement this morning saying Secretary Powell was completely vaccinated. We do know that he was battling a rare form of blood cancer, which made him immunosuppressed. So despite being fully vaccinated, we hope that this is a lesson to all those out there to continue to get vaccinated, to protect the loved ones that even have that protection, but are in a special category.
Liz, let's talk now about Colin Powell. Who was Colin Powell?
Colin Powell was a icon for American diplomacy. He set the stage for what is possible in the American dream. As you already said, he was the first Black Joint Chiefs of Staff, the first Black Secretary of State, but he also had this kind of gigantic, what he later called blot on his stain, on his legacy. I think he'll forever be associated with the decision to go into the Iraq War and the erroneous facts around weapons of mass destruction that really fueled the actions there.
We'll talk about that a little later on. But first, talk to us a little bit about what made him such an influential person.
It was definitely the breadth of his career. He started under Reagan, went through H.W. Bush and W. Bush. I think as well, he was a man that was just seen with incredible integrity. Coming into the 2008 election, there was a lot of conversation around Barack Obama's religion. Colin Powell was a registered Republican, but he called on his party to do better. And he said the question isn't, is Obama a Republican or Christian, a Muslim or Christian? It's, so what if he is? And he tells this story about serving with folks in the military from all faiths, and that's what it means to be American. And that's just one small example of a man that just really led with integrity.
Led with integrity, impeccable record, personal record, well respected, as you outlined, and a lot of people describe him as one of the most trusted people in the Bush administration. But as you alluded to a short while ago, I mean, his political credibility suffered a major blow in 2003 when he basically paved the way for the war in Iraq. Will that have a lasting impact on his legacy?
It has absolutely already had a lasting impact. I think it's a conversation on 2 strains. One, his trust in the national intelligence. He talked about he was given this information 4 days before his speech. He chose to run with it, which frankly speaks to his leadership, right? Do you go with something because it's planned, it's ordered by your president, when you're not sure of the sources, with the devastating consequences? He also felt that the president had already made the decision to go into war, and he was the role he could play would bring the UN on. He felt very strongly that America should go in with allies. I think the second part of his lasting legacy is he's a man that was willing to admit his mistakes. This is not something we saw really come out of much out of the Bush administration, but he had many interviews. He talked about the false information he gave, and seemed more open to saying there was some fallibility in my decisions, and I own up to them, and I will do better.
All right, Liz Schulke, U.S. policy analyst, talking to us from Baltimore, Maryland. Thank you so much for weighing in. Greatly appreciate it.